welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man that currently has my house surrounded with an army of angry werewolves, and he's probably about to attack. It's David Cross.
Forward!
Shoot
Mark,
the arrows! Shoot the arrows!
Shoot the giant silver arrows. Very expensive to make.
And
Mark,
on set, they only had
confused.
one working arrow shooter at a time, which is hilarious.
What? They did?
Yeah, because
All right.
this is like a $30 million movie, and so they only had one thing that worked at a time. It's kind of funny hearing the commentary on this. So I'm screwed. I can only shoot one arrow at your army charging my home.
Yeah, but if you could reload really fast. Mark, what I was saying is I'm a little confused because I thought we were covering Fast and Furious 3 because this feels like the Fast and Furious 3 of the Underworld franchise.
No, yeah, I mean, completely different prequel. Now, I guess what we could have Fast 9 is more of a prequel, is more of a similar type prequel. Like this and Fast 9 with all of its flashbacks to prior things that were mentioned once, and then this movie, It's interesting.
Yeah.
And this is a weird one, right? Underworld Rise of the Lycans. It was made in 2009, which it does not feel like it was made in 2009. When I think about this movie, it seems like more of an 2003 film to me.
I was shocked when I saw it was 2009. I literally was like, wait, this didn't come out in 2004?
But no matter how, this movie doesn't have much meat on its bone, but it gives huge roles to a ripped Michael Sheen, which is awesome, and Bill Nighy gets to do a battle walk with full armor into battle, and then he does a superhero landing on the ground to engage in combat with werewolves. So no matter the quality of this movie, even though it's 90 minutes, which is beautiful. I mean, this is a short movie. This movie still gets an A+++++ in my book because it just features Bill Nighy going to war with a ripped Michael Sheen because it's just such an outlier in Hollywood that this movie is made with these characters of this franchise with a prequel directed by Patrick Tatopoulos, who is a production designer, creature designer. It's a true outlier, so that's why I do love it.
You do love the weird and strange.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you because I remember when this movie was, how did I put this? I remember when this movie was being marketed and I saw the commercials and I was like, nope. I was like, without Celine, I do not want to see this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, how does this movie, why does this movie need to exist is what I'm getting down to. You say it's weird, and it is really weird. Does this film need to exist in this franchise? I'm honestly going to say no. There's no reason for it to exist, but it's enjoyable. Thanks mostly to Michael Sheen. And what I wanted to get into right off the bat, Mark, was should new Underworld fans, baby Underworld fans, baby vamps, should they just watch this movie first before they watch the first movie?
Absolutely. Watch this movie first.
Absolutely.
The only problem with this, though, is that if you watch this first, and then you go and you watch Underworld, Lucien, played by Michael Sheen, has such a chump-esque death in Underworld. He remember when we talked about it, it feels like for the final hour of Underworld, he's just laying on the ground. And then he crawls to different spots. So it's a very unceremonious exit for Lucien. But yeah, you should watch this first. And this movie does have its merits. I mean, the production design by Dan Henna, who is the art director on King Kong, Lord of the Rings, Xena. He's the production designer on Love and Monsters, Thor Ragnarok, Mortal Engines, all the Hobbits movie, The Warrior's Way. He was art director on The Frighteners. This is a $30 million movie that does feel stretched at moments. But I gotta tell you, it looks, the detail. So Len Weissman in the commentary was jealous. He's like, look at the detail on this stuff. You guys did an amazing job decorating this. And even the costumes. I think Michael Sheen looks awesome. I like how they dressed also Rhona Mitra, where I was listening to this picture-in-picture on the Blu-ray, and Rhona Mitra said that she had to look like sexy but sassy but powerful in her outfit because they didn't want to recreate Celine, and I think they accomplished that. So this movie's like there's little gemstones on Bill Nighy when he's walking around on his costumes. I love looking at this movie, except they shot New Zealand and they shot day for night. So when they're charging the castle, you can just tell the odd coloring in it. It's clearly day for night, so that takes me out a little bit. But does this movie need to exist? Yes. And that's because I'm such a big Bill Nighy fan that and I sent you a message days ago and I was listening to the commentary of the picture in picture. Bill Nighy loves these movies because he plays a vampire badass lord. And it's just awesome. The finale of this movie is a chain fight between Michael Sheen and Bill Nighy. That's why this movie needs to exist, because it's an outlier. And it's not super CGI heavy. It's a chain fight between them. It's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So yes, this movie needs to exist, David.
All right. Awesome. So I agree that it should be watched before Underworld.
I went off on a long tangent. Sorry about that.
Yeah. And I conceptually understand why this film could be greenlit. Because the idea behind it is, let's show the war from the werewolf's perspective. Because you've only seen it from the vampire's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So they do a good job of setting all that up. But it might have been more interesting if it was modern. I don't know. I'm trying to think here. The werewolves in modern day, it's just a different protagonist going up against Selena in her prime. That would have been also pretty interesting. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what I'm getting at here other than it's a solid movie. That is interesting. It's an outlier. I'm still a little confused about how it got greenlit.
I mean, I think I have one.
I'm not mad. I watched it.
I think I have one reason why. So the first Underworld cost $22 million to make, and it made $95 million worldwide and was huge on DVD. The second film, Underworld Evolution, was $45 million to make. It made $113 worldwide, and once again, it was huge on DVD. So you want to keep your IP alive. You want to keep Len Wiseman happy. You want to keep, you want to keep this IP rolling. So you just give them $35 million to go make a movie. And so this movie made $90 million worldwide, which is quite impressive on a $35 million budget. You add marketing and all that, and then the DVD sales. You just keep the franchise alive. So if you're Screen Gems, this, to me, is a no-brainer. Because you couldn't get Len Wiseman back. You couldn't, Kate Beckinsale, you couldn't get her back at the time. They were both working on other projects. So you just keep the franchise alive. And you know what's crazy? This did not hurt the franchise, because 3 years later, when Underworld Awakening came out, it pulled in $160 million and it had a $70 million budget. So clearly, this didn't hurt the franchise. This didn't kill the franchise. So I think it's wise to make. Is it wise to make a full-length movie on a 1 minute flashback in Underworld that features a blonde Sonya being killed, which is weird because when Wiseman was like, "Hey, Patrick Tatopoulos, can you direct this?" He's like, "Okay, cool. So Sonya has to be blonde?" He's like, "No, she has to look like Celine." So he's like, "Oh, so Sonya's dark haired, yeah, but why is she blonde in this?" You're like, people won't care. But that's why I think it's just a no brainer.
So in the theatrical cut, she's blonde, but in the most recent edit of the Underworld, they take scenes from this film and add it into it, so the continuity sticks.
And what's amazing that you said during the commentary, the editor of this movie, during the commentary of Rise of the Lycans, was like, "This morning for fun, I re-edited the scenes in Underworld to add Sonya." And Len Wiseman went, "You just did that for fun?" He's like, "Yeah, now we can add it in the Blu-rays." That's exactly what you said. At that moment, I heard it on the commentary, which makes me so happy. But yeah, so they went back and kind of retconned that. But
well, what I was going to say, just so I don't forget, is it's not only just a 30-second clip from the first film that they built an entire story around. It's that they're featuring dead characters. All the characters in this movie are dead.
Yeah.
Yep. Is there any one of them that's alive? I think Mate is oh my god. Did the librarian live? No, I thought he was killed too.
Yeah, Tanis gets wiped out in the second one. Victor's killed. We don't know what happens to Reyes, but we assume he's dead. Lucian's dead. Sonya's dead. Everyone's dead. Yeah. Everyone. This movie does not move the franchise forward at all. if Bill Nighy was still alive in this world, then you have a movie where she figures it out and then she goes and battles him. But yes, it does. I think this is just keeping an IP alive. I don't think
Okay.
that this does much for the story. You know the ending already. You know that Lucien fails, and so they attack the castle, right? Sure, they free some people. They do free the werewolves, but Bill Nighy escapes, and decades, no, centuries later, they're still in the underground, getting their butt kicked by the vampires. So Lucien's never quite successful in his quest. It's an odd one, man.
Yeah.
I just love it. And you know what's interesting too about this is what I love about horror sequels is they always elevate the production designer into the director role. So Saw, in a later franchise, the production designer became the director. In this, the production designer became the director. Savini, in the earlier Zombie, he came back and directed a remake of Night of the Living Dead. I love seeing production designer, creature designers direct movies. I don't know. I think it's fascinating to me and how horror does that. They elevate the people in their roles. But it's there's not much there's not much to this movie, David.
There's not. It's lean. You can guess exactly what's going to happen. You watch some fights, and then it's over. And then the ending scene is the beginning scene of Underworld. So you're like, okay, I guess this works.
And
all right. So
I would be horrible to argue with because someone goes, Mark, why does this movie exist? I'm like, Bill Nighy is a vampire. And then they're like, okay, well, does it do much? Like, do they actually allow Rhona Mitra to have her own character so you care when she dies? And I just go, Bill Nighy. Like, I have no argument to. I'm just gonna use that in real life. Like, Mark, Mark, where were you on the night of the 16th? Watching Bill Nighy in Underworld 3.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's it. Like, that's my only argument for this movie, and the neat production design. I don't care, but it's.
I have something for you here.
Yeah.
Because I think we're circling this, and maybe you can help me refine it. When can you justify a prequel? Because here's my thing. I mostly dislike prequels. I'm not saying all prequels, but I think a lot of prequels are just not well done. And that is because you know the ending of the story.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a prequel, you should probably do it about a side character who happens to be involved in something that is happening, so you don't know what happens to that specific character.
All right. So, I mean, let's take a look at some prequels, right? Sorry, did I interrupt you?
No. Go ahead.
I mean, we look at prequels. I mean, I think George Lucas, with his prequels, that world is so worthy of exploring. So even though we know Anakin becomes Vader, I still think those prequels are justified. And call me crazy, but I love Prometheus and Alien Covenant. Prometheus has some of the, I hate saying this word, I hate being a hater, but some of the dumbest deaths I've ever seen in cinema. Ever. And I've tried to study him to defend him. I actually figured out how the geologist got lost in Prometheus. But I think those movies are so stylish and the creation, and they go so sideways and bonkers that I think they are worth it. Rise of the Planet of the Apes, I think, are prequels worth exploring. Rogue One. I think Bumblebee is a solid one. X-Men First Class has proven itself to be a solid prequel. The Thing is totally unnecessary. That's for sure. Oof. But yeah, I think maybe the first Purge was a good idea to be a prequel. Not Hannibal Rising. Anything that explains why the villain, well, they did that for the prequels with George Lucas, but Hannibal Rising, I think the Halloween remake, that's kind of a prequel to why he turned evil. Scorpion King, that's a good prequel because it's a side prequel. I guess that's what I'm saying. That's a very long answer to your question.
There's a list of good prequels.
Minions. That's a good one. Sorry.
I haven't seen it. Yeah. So my basic thing is a prequel is worth it when it really illuminates what's happening in the current timeline, or it adds new something to it. And I think with Star Wars that functions because you build out the world, you meet all these other characters. It's a tragedy already. Because you get to see Anakin be amazing, and then you get to see him completely turn. And you find out what happened to Padme and all these other really cool characters. But if a movie doesn't have anything